Today, we're counting down the 5 biggest non-nuclear explosions ever recorded. These blasts leveled cities, created giant craters, and were felt for hundreds of miles, all without splitting a single atom. From accidental disasters to intentional tests, these explosions changed history. We'll break down the science, the stories, and the sheer scale of destruction. Buckle up. These are the most powerful conventional explosions the world has ever seen. Let's get into it. Number 5 is Operation Minor Scale, the largest planned man-made non-nuclear explosion in history. This was not a weapon of war, but a scientific experiment on a scale almost unimaginable, designed to answer a chilling question. What would happen if a nuclear-sized blast went off, but without the radioactive aftermath? In 1985, at the vast and sun-baked White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, the U.S. military set out to simulate the effects of a small nuclear detonation without using any nuclear material. The Cold War was still simmering, and understanding the destructive power of such blasts was crucial for military planning and civil defense. Their solution? ANFO, ammonium nitrate and fuel oil, a mixture more commonly found on farms than battlefields. This humble fertilizer, when combined with fuel oil, becomes a powerful explosive, and it's cheap, stable, and easy to handle in massive quantities. For Operation Minor Scale, they used a staggering 4,744 tons, over 9 million pounds, of ANFO, carefully packed into a gigantic fiberglass dome built right in the middle of the desert. The dome itself was an engineering marvel, designed to contain and focus the blast for maximum effect. When the countdown ended and the explosives were triggered, the result was a colossal fireball and shockwave, unleashing a blast equivalent to 4 kilotons of TNT, almost a third the size of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. The ground shook for miles around. The explosion sent a towering mushroom cloud billowing into the sky, accompanied by a deafening roar and a shockwave that shattered windows miles away. The desert floor was left scarred by a massive crater, a permanent reminder of the test's sheer power. Military vehicles, aircraft, and even tanks were positioned at various distances from ground zero to study the effects of the blast. Some were vaporized instantly, while others were battered, scorched, or left eerily intact, providing invaluable data on survivability. Scientists and Department of Defense officials monitored every detail from reinforced bunkers, collecting data on shock waves, heat, and debris. This information was vital for preparing defenses, designing bunkers, and understanding how to protect troops and civilians in a nuclear scenario, all without the deadly radioactive fallout. Operation Minor Scale proved that you don't need nuclear fission to create a catastrophic explosion, just the right chemicals, a bit of ingenuity, and a spark. The sheer scale of the blast was a sobering demonstration of what industrial chemistry can achieve. In fact, it was bigger than any bomb ever dropped in World War II, including the legendary Grand Slam earthquake bombs, which were themselves considered marvels of destructive power at the time. This test set a new benchmark for what conventional explosives could do, and it demonstrated the terrifying potential of industrial materials when harnessed for destruction. It was a wake-up call for military planners and scientists alike. Thankfully, no one was harmed during the test, but the scale of the explosion was truly mind-boggling. The aftermath was studied for months as scientists tried to understand every detail of the blast's effects. It was a nuclear-sized bang, without the nuclear fallout. The world had witnessed the awesome and terrifying power of chemistry alone, and from here, the explosions only get more chaotic. The story of humanity's biggest blasts is just getting started. Number 4 is the Halifax explosion of 1917, an accident so devastating it erased a city from the map long before the world had ever heard of nuclear weapons. This was a disaster that would change Halifax and the world forever. Halifax, Nova Scotia, was a bustling, vital port during World War I. Its harbor was always busy, filled with ships carrying troops, supplies, and munitions for the war effort. The city's strategic location made it a hub of activity, but also a place of risk. On the morning of December 6, 1917, the French cargo ship SS Mont Blanc, loaded with over 2,300 tons of high explosives, collided with the Norwegian vessel SS Imo in the narrow harbor waters. The collision was accidental, but the consequences would be catastrophic. A fire broke out almost immediately, sending thick black smoke into the sky. The Mont Blanc's crew, realizing the deadly cargo they carried, abandoned ship in a desperate attempt to warn the city of the impending disaster. Curious onlookers, unaware of the true danger, gathered along the waterfront to watch the burning ship. Many had no idea that they were standing within the blast zone of what would become the largest man-made explosion prior to the atomic bomb. Firefighters and emergency crews rushed to the scene, bravely attempting to control the blaze. They had no way of knowing they were racing toward a floating bomb, seconds away from disaster. At exactly 9:04 a.m., the Mont Blanc exploded with a force equivalent to 2.9 kilotons of TNT, more powerful than many modern tactical nuclear weapons. The blast unleashed a shockwave that tore through the city, shattering everything in its path. The explosion vaporized the Mont Blanc, flattened over half a mile of Halifax, and shattered windows as far as 50 miles away. Buildings crumbled, streets vanished, and entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble in an instant. The force of the blast triggered a massive tsunami, which swept through the devastated city, flooding streets and carrying debris far inland. The destruction was almost unimaginable. Over 1,700 people died instantly, and more than 9,000 were injured, many blinded by flying glass. The human toll was staggering, with families torn apart and entire communities left in mourning. Thousands more were left homeless, forced to seek shelter in the freezing December cold. The city's infrastructure was destroyed, and survivors faced a long, harsh winter with little hope. The explosion was so powerful it hurled a half-ton anchor over 2 miles from the blast site, embedding it deep in the ground, a silent testament to the force unleashed that day. The sound of the detonation was heard over 100 miles away, startling people in distant towns who had no idea what had happened in Halifax. Halifax was left in ruins, a cityscape transformed into a wasteland. The disaster served as a chilling lesson in the dangers of transporting massive quantities of explosives through populated areas, and its legacy would shape safety regulations for generations. Before Hiroshima, there was Halifax, a city destroyed in a single catastrophic moment, forever remembered as the site of one of history's most devastating accidents. Number 3 is the Texas City disaster of 1947. An event that would become the deadliest industrial accident in U.S. history, and one that forever changed the way America thought about industrial safety. The SS Grand Camp, a French cargo ship, was docked in Texas City, its hold packed with 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, a chemical known for its explosive potential, but widely used in agriculture at the time. On the morning of April 16th, a fire was discovered smoldering deep within the ship's hold. The crew, alarmed but determined to save the valuable cargo, sprang into action. Fearing that dousing the flames with water would ruin the shipment, the crew made a fateful decision. They sealed the hatches and piped in steam, hoping to smother the fire. Instead, they unwittingly turned the ship into a massive pressure cooker, trapping heat and gases inside. As thick smoke billowed from the Grand Camp, curious onlookers gathered along the docks and nearby streets, drawn by the spectacle but unaware of the catastrophic danger lurking within. At 9:12 a.m., disaster struck. The Grand Camp erupted in a colossal explosion, sending a fireball and shockwave tearing through the port. The blast obliterated the ship, leveled the docks, and shattered buildings across much of Texas City. The force was so immense that it left a crater where the Grand Camp once stood. The explosion triggered a 15-foot tidal wave, which surged into the city's streets, flooding homes and businesses and adding to the chaos. The shockwave was so powerful that it knocked 2 planes out of the sky as they flew overhead, demonstrating the sheer scale of the blast. Windows shattered and buildings were damaged up to 100 miles away, with the explosion felt as far as Houston and Galveston. Fires and secondary explosions ripped through nearby chemical plants and oil refineries, igniting tanks and sending plumes of toxic smoke into the sky. Hours later, the neighboring SS High Flyer, also loaded with ammonium nitrate, caught fire and exploded, compounding the devastation and overwhelming first responders. The official death toll was 581, but many believe the true number was higher, as entire families were lost and some victims were never identified. Nearly every firefighter who responded to the initial blaze was killed in the first explosion, a devastating blow to the community and a tragic testament to their bravery. The blast was so violent it hurled a 1.5-ton anchor nearly 2 miles inland and destroyed the Monsanto chemical plant, releasing clouds of toxic gas and causing further casualties. In the aftermath, the disaster prompted sweeping changes in chemical safety regulations, emergency response protocols, and industrial oversight across the United States. The Texas City disaster stands as a grim reminder of how a single moment of industrial negligence can unleash unimaginable destruction, forever altering the lives of thousands and reshaping a nation's approach to safety. Number 2 is the RAF Fald explosion, one of the largest blasts ever on British soil and a military secret for years. In 1944, RAF Fald in Staffordshire was an underground munitions depot storing up to 4,000 tons of bombs and shells. On November 27th, a spark, likely from a brass chisel used on a live bomb, triggered a chain reaction. At 11 a.m., nearly 4,000 tons of explosives detonated deep underground. The blast obliterated the depot, created a crater over 300 feet deep and a quarter-mile wide, and was felt across England and as far as Switzerland. A nearby reservoir burst, flooding the crater and surrounding area. Farms and factories were destroyed. Around 70 people died, a mix of workers, military, and locals. The energy released was equivalent to about 2 kilotons of TNT, comparable to Halifax but underground. The British government kept the disaster secret during the war. Today, the Hanbury crater is a silent memorial to the hidden dangers of war and the catastrophic power of stored explosives. Number 1 is the 2020 Beirut explosion, a disaster captured in real time by thousands of cameras. At the port of Beirut, 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate sat neglected in a warehouse for years. On August 4th, a fire broke out in Warehouse 12, igniting fireworks stored nearby. At 6:08 p.m., the ammonium nitrate detonated. The blast was equivalent to up to 1.1 kilotons of TNT, one of the largest accidental explosions ever. A massive shockwave tore through Beirut, flattening buildings, shattering windows for miles, and leaving a 140-foot deep crater. The explosion was heard in Cyprus, 150 miles away, and registered as a 3.3 magnitude earthquake. Over 218 people died, 7,000 were injured, and 300,000 were left homeless. The disaster exposed years of government negligence and corruption, sparking protests across Lebanon. The Beirut explosion is a modern tragedy, a reminder that industrial chemicals mishandled can devastate a city in seconds. These 5 non-nuclear explosions rivaled the destructive power of atomic bombs without splitting a single atom or unleashing nuclear energy. From military tests to catastrophic accidents, they reveal the terrifying potential of everyday chemicals and the risks we often overlook. Other massive blasts like the Evangelos Florakis explosion in Cyprus and the San Juanico disaster in Mexico prove the danger is always present, lurking nearby. These stories are warnings. Learn from the past to prevent future tragedies and protect our communities. Which explosion shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing history and incredible stories. Thanks for watching.